Okay, in this tutorial we're going to look at using a camera and making it act as though the scene that we've got is 3D. So to do that, first off we're going to bring a camera into the document by going to Layer, New, and then choosing Camera. Okay, we can have a look at the sort of camera that we want to bring in. So we've got film size, type of camera, all that sort of business. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to leave it called Camera 1. Obviously, if you've got lots of cameras in your scene, you're going to not want to name them sensibly, but because we're only having one, Camera 1 kind of makes sense. You've also got different lenses on here as well, so different sizes of lens. I'm just going to leave it at the default settings here and going to call it, press OK. Okay, and it says here it's got this warning about cameras and lights not affecting 2D layers. So what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that any layers that are going to be moving in our 3D space are set up correctly. So we'll press OK. And here we've got our camera now placed at the top. The other layers, we need to modify them slightly so that they behave as though they're sort of in this 3D space, and that's this thing here, 3D layer. So what we do is we'll just turn that on. Make sure we've unlocked any layers that we're messing with. There we go. We're going to turn them all on apart from the sky, because that's just going to remain as our background grey. Okay, so at the moment it doesn't do a lot. However, we might notice that as we scroll through, some things have slightly altered. So there's our witch. You might find that some layers rotate now in 3D space. So just to alter that, we're going to click on the little triangle next to the witch, and we're going to have a look at our X, Y and Z rotation. Okay, so in particular what we want to do is work out which axis she has spun round that we haven't wanted her to, and I can tell you now that it's the Y axis. If I change the Y rotation here and just sort of spin that round, you should hopefully, perhaps if I just, yeah, so you can see us spinning as we move that around. There we go. So we've basically got to choose the right angle for her to be at, which actually, as it happens, is she's turned 90 degrees, but we just put -90. There we are. And so that is the correct rotation for her to be facing the right way again. So having made that little alteration, we'll double check Santa Claus, but I think he's okay. And now Santa, and we'll come along partway through his animation, and there he goes, yeah, he's alright. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to decide which element on our screen, which layer is furthest back, or how far away from the camera it is. So what we'll do is we're going to take each layer in turn. We'll start with the furthest away. I'm going to keep the sky as a 2D layer, so that never changes. The moon, we click on the transform bit here so that we can see our different properties. You'll see that in the position we've got an X, a Y and now a Z location, and if I move that, if I just spin that around, there we are, we should hopefully see as it gets further and further away. If I make it quite extreme and make it like 1000, okay, 1000, okay, it now appears to be further away. It's been shrunk a little bit. Okay, so what we can do just to modify that is to scale it up a little bit back to its original size. So I'm going to go with about 120, something like that. Might just move the witch in front of it to see how that looks. So maybe a touch bigger. Okay, lovely. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do with each of these layers. So houses, transform. Now the houses are in front of the moon, so that means they're closer to the camera, or at least in our animation they're closer to the camera. So position here I'm going to put as 900. And you can see that they've scaled slightly as well, so you could do this if I turn off the window layer. We might get a better sense of how we need to change them, so I'm just going to scale those up as well. Okay. 180, something like that. See how that looks with the window back on. Okay. The witch, again, now the position of the witch is animated here, but hopefully if we set a keyframe of the Z position, we should be alright. If we go back to the beginning there, I'm going to go with 800. Let's just see how that's affected it. Now what's interesting about this is she appears to start off further back now, and she actually swoops into the scene and comes sort of forward. But as you can see, it's not going to affect the overall appearance of our animation, so we'll get away with that. So that's okay, we'll leave that as it is. Santa, he can be at the same depth as, so just turn effects up there, transform and position, we said I think 800, and we'll just double check that. So you can see him sort of swoop round there, and oh, that's the witch, sorry. There we go. So Santa sort of unfolds himself. And there we go. And finally, the window. This is going to be in front of everything else, so we're going to put that at, let's put that at 600. And obviously turn it on, so we can see what's going on. And then scale it up to the correct size. Okay, so all our depths have been set. So now with the camera, we should be able to animate that moving forward. So let's click on the stopwatch for its position. There we go. And as you can see, its start position is this -266.7, and if I fiddle with that, you'll see it sort of move in and out and things like that. Now, I'll turn on the stopwatch, make sure there's a keyframe at the start, and then by the end of the animation, perhaps partway through Santa, we might well have moved through everything. So you can see we're going up in value there, and sort of appear to go through the window, and sort of look at the houses there. Maybe something like that would be nice, and maybe it could actually happen a little bit sooner. So you can see as the animation goes on, it gets closer and closer as the camera moves through the scene. The advantage of doing it this way is that we're not scaling up every layer over time. Instead, we're just using 2 keyframes to do the job of what would have been many if we didn't have our camera. So just press play on that, see what it looks like. As we've got more things going on, it's going to take longer to deal with, so just be prepared for it to take a bit longer, obviously, when you're previewing it, because we've got more things being calculated. So there you can see it moving a little bit more at the correct speed. Okay. The last thing I want to do, just as we're zooming in here, I'd like the window to sort of fade out a bit as we get closer, as though we're going through it. So at this point here, where are we at? About 9 seconds, something like that. And just click on the window layer and get the opacity value and click the stopwatch there to record it at 100, and then very quickly, just over about a second or second and a half, reduce that opacity right down to 0. So we've got, so you can see that happening. So there we go. Okay. Just looking at that end scene there, I'm thinking maybe I'm going to bring that camera out a bit more so I can actually reduce it. So we can see the bottom of the houses, the bottom of the windows of the houses. Something like that. Get a bit more of a sense of the scene going on. Okay. So we've used the 3D layer option to give each of these layers a depth. We've added a camera, which we've again animated its position so that it appears to move through those layers. And finally, just to make it look as though we've gone out of the window, we've faded that out so we can see the whole scene. There we go. Okay, if we go to File and Save, that's the end of this video.